All right, so welcome again. I am so delighted to see all of you. This is always a very curious time for all churches, and we wrestle our way through, Lord, what do we do in these times, you know? And there are a few things that we enjoy, but what I want to do, there is a passage in Ezra, and you can throw that on. There we go. So we had an elders meeting on Thursday night. And Dana got up and read this passage to us. Stu said, I read that yesterday or the day before, and lo and behold, the next morning, I read that. That's from my Bible. And I was rather startled by, three of us on the eldership team getting the exact same passage within days of each other. I guess that could mean God's trying to get our attention. If you don't know, we are exploring and in conversation about moving to Mariners Christian School on a Sunday morning. It could be a potentially big move for us. It'll be our 8th in 8 years. And whilst we enjoy the mobility, one of the things we've really missed is not having a Sunday morning worship space. It's definitely counting against us. And you just have to speak to the parents, the youngsters who are just like, you know what, we would love to go to a morning space. And then we'll have the evenings to do with it whatever we deem appropriate. But the move, the relocation, it's not a definite. Please don't go away from here saying, when are we moving to Mariners? We're in conversation. But we want to invite you in as a community to say, please pray with us. And the passage says, there at the Hafa Canal, I proclaimed a fast, Ezra said, so that we might humble ourselves before our God and ask Him for a safe journey for us and our children with all of our possessions. I was ashamed to ask the king for soldiers and horsemen to protect us from enemies on the road, because we are told the king, the gracious hand of our God, is on everyone who looks to Him. But His anger is against all who forsake Him. So we fasted and petitioned our God about this, and He answered our prayer. So here's my invitation. Would you consider, and I'm going to go through Monday through Friday in a moment, would you consider taking a day this week to pray with us? One, to discern God. Is this the right move? We don't want to move if it's wrong. Remember last week I quoted Erwin McManus, who said, we don't want to remain where God was. God was in this place for us. We had so much fun regrouping after COVID and then the uncertainty of 2 different worship spaces. And so we don't want to stay if God has called us to move, but we don't want to move if God isn't in it. So we're asking you that discerning process. Secondly, we are asking for protection. Last week I shared from Luke 15 about the lost sheep, lost coin, and the lost son. The lost sheep, those who have drifted. The lost coin, those who are stuck, just stuck in a spiritual rut. The lost son, those who are rebellious. And that we as a church would pray for them, regroup them, and the great story of the shepherd leaves the 99 cool, healthy ones to go after the one who is lost. And so we would love you to pray with us and fast if you're able to. Then we'd love you to have some fun pop-up prayer sessions. 2, 3 of you just get together and cry out. It's so important for us, folks. We daren't move unless we really are certain we've heard God and we protect those. And remember, a large chunk of the community are away. They're interning, they are vacationing, they are holidaying, they are working elsewhere. A whole bunch of our students are in different internships around and about the nation. And so, and of course, business trips, weddings. Oh my gosh, can people stop getting married now? I feel like every Sunday is about a third of our church at some wedding. Stop marrying. Well, not really. We do want you to marry rather than live together. So actually, get married on a Saturday. And then have some pop-up prayer sessions. And then God protect us along the way, because there are many implications and ingredients. And I quoted that. We don't want to remain where God was. So, who will take Monday and say, I'm going to pray Monday with a splash of fasting, even if it's just one meal? Who? All right, I've got 2 hands, 3 hands, 4 hands. All right, 5. Who will do Tuesday? See it? Yep. Good. Wednesday. Okay, we get in the feel of this is how it works. This is better than army volunteer. We need some volunteers. You, and you. That's how we did it in the army. But thank you for volunteering. And then Friday, who will pray on Friday? Okay, so we've got all of the days fasted. Grab someone to go with you. Did I miss Thursday? I never miss a Thursday. Who will do Thursday? Okay. But we really do need you to participate with us in discerning the Lord. Is this a good move? Is it a good time to move? Is it a good place to move? And are we good to step into a morning space with an evening then creating an option as to what we do with it? Thank you for that. We're in the middle of a mini-series called The Art of Creating the Future, based on the fact that we are a prophetic people, we're on the move, and we're trying to craft the future that God has for us personally and for us as a community. And I am enjoying diving into Daniel 10, which I will read in just a moment. I want to tell you a story. I know that comes as no surprise because I love stories. 1985. 1985, we were 2 years into leading our first church in Durban, South Africa. And Malcolm, some of you know Malcolm, he lives in Tennessee. He is very invested these days in Christian music in Nashville. But those days we were all punk kids together. Mally and I were leading the church. We were about 25, I think, 26. And this passage, which I'm going to read, Malcolm said to us, you know what, I think God's calling the church to a 3-week fast. Oh, wow. It never entered my mind that you do that sort of thing. So what we did is we called the church. We were probably this size. I was actually looking for a photograph because I have a black and white picture of the end of the fast, and I would love to have shown it, but I couldn't find it. So I'm sorry. Maybe over the next while I will find it. And so what we did was 3 weeks, every night, we gathered together, and the whole church fasted and prayed. Well, it was a kind of a Daniel thing, which I know is technically not a full fast. It's more kind of a abstaining from. But we did soup and fruit juice. And every single night for 21 days, those who traveled on business fasted. Those who were away for some other reason, weddings, fasted. It was incredible. My love, would you agree? It was actually extraordinary, the high buy-in. It kind of was everyone who called Glenridge home fasted. It was truly extraordinary. When at the end of that, the team said to us, listen, why don't you and Meryl go away? I remember we were kind of South Africans in a tiny little hole, and they said, why don't you go away? And we just want to thank you for leading us. So they sent us to Switzerland, to the UK, and here to the West Coast. For those of you who know our story, we actually visited what became Southlands Church, not knowing that 10 years later we would actually end up leading that church. That's another story. When I got back, we had an extraordinary situation. Because Malcolm had decided that to worship God, we have to do it in a space with no chairs. And so the little school hall we were in, they took all the chairs out every time we gathered. And the band was crazy wild. I mean, we sometimes would start off the worship set with Let's Twist Again like we did last summer. So please don't think we were the most reverent people on the planet. We weren't. But this is what we were committed to. It's funny to think that no one really knows what that song is. But what we had committed each other to, we said we're going to do this. Whatever the song says, we will do. So if the song says jump, we jump. If the song said kneel, we kneel. If the song said we lie prostrate before you, we lay prostrate. And we stopped the worship if everyone didn't do it. So it wasn't the height of comfort. I came back from the trip, Meryl and I did, and it was like the church was split in two. The one side, who were way more prophetically wired, was so staunch. This is the most amazing church I've ever been to, they said. I cannot believe a church would be so obedient to the word. Whatever the word says, we do. There's 7 Hebrew words for praise, including being clamorously foolish, which I would imagine very few of you have ever done in worship. Orange County worship is very passive, and we're changing that. And so we would be clamorously foolish. I mean, we would sweat. We would perspire when we had our worship. The prophetic people were over the moon with excitement. The pastoral people, care, compassion, sensitivity to others, were offering the silent scream. No one understands. Where is the care in this church? Where is the sensitivity for those who are new to the Lord or not walking with the Lord or hurting or the introvert or whatever? And I walked into this, and honestly, my 2-year experience of leading a church, maybe 3, 2.5, I just said, Lord, I have no idea what to do here. I know this is not good, and I know it's not going to end well, but I need you. And it's one of the very few messages in 42 years that I remember. And it was the pastor-prophet dilemma. And I had 3 points, because that's what I learned how to preach. You've got to have 3 points. I got 3 points tonight. You'll be happy to know. And I just said, Lord, you got to help me. And I felt God say, think of a beer. Now, again, you'll realize we weren't exactly the most whatever. And a good beer is not without froth. If it's just substance, it's flat. If it's just full of froth, now go back to 85 and just give me some love here. If it's just full of froth, you drink but are never fully satisfied. Oh, said everyone, we get that. Do you understand, I suggested, that in order for a healthy church, we need the froth, the energy, the excitement, the buzz that the prophetic types bring, and we need the substance that the pastoral caring types. Okay, we get that. I said, do you remember a teeter-totter? We call it a seesaw. It's never fun if you do it with someone who is much heavier than you or much lighter than you, because you end up sitting like this, and that's no fun. Oh, said everyone, we get that. The true rhythm, we argued, it's like being on the move for the Lord. It means that we go with our left foot and our right foot. Left foot, there are times we are very prophetic, open to God, a life full of obedience. Immediate obedience is the language which comes to mind. Right foot, we are pastorally sensitive, tender, caring, compassionate. A healthy church is not one that's one or the other. And I have friends who lead churches one way or the other way. The Exodus passage, which Wendy taught us so wonderfully tonight, or spoke about in our pre-gathering prayer, was the pillar of fire by day and the cloud by night. What happened was, we don't move, and we do move. It's stationary, pastoral. How's everyone doing? Your tent fine? You got no leaks? Everything's strong, sturdy? You good? You good? How are your animals? Your animals good? And then the cloud starts moving again, and we look at each other, says Chris to Merrill, Merrill to Chris, it's time. We got to move. That's what I've been feeling over the last few months. We got to move. Not sure where, but we've got to move. And ladies and gentlemen, that is a healthy church that knows how to hold in tension the pastoral and the prophetic. So it's the pastoral pause, just caring for people, sensitive to them. And then there comes that moment when the pillar of fire, the cloud starts moving, and there's that prophetic thrust, that sense of energy and mobility. Brothers and sisters, it's time to move on. And that, my argument is a healthy church. The gospel, dear friends, is transformative. When Jesus comes into our lives, it's way more enabling than for me to live for a new heavens and a new earth. It's way more, and that's compelling. I mean, probably because I don't really know what that looks like. But what I love about the gospel is it realigns and reassigns me to the divine intention for my life and our life. It's the very thing that gives us meaning. It helps us understand why we exist on the planet. I had such a cool time, Kai and I. We invited a few other pastors in the city here in Costa Mesa, and we said, let's just have coffee together. We're similar. Not exactly the same, we're similar. I'd love to know, what's God saying to you? What are you guys doing? What are you feeling? What are you teaching? And we had a fabulous couple of hours just sitting, dialoguing together. What came out of it was the reminder that each community has its own distinct sense of purpose in Costa Mesa. I said to Jesse, who leads Presence OC Presence, and you can, the name of the church tells you everything. What do they want? The glory. What do they want? The presence. What does he do most of every week? Praise. I said to him, Jesse, we need you. We are practical. We're getting down to the things that matter to us, but we need you. Ben with Worldmark, what they are doing in their community. I mean, each one of us, Watermark, I keep saying Worldmark. Watermark, probably have to sell our our world mark points. Are you with me? I don't want to belabor the point, but I want to make the point. There is meaning involved here, folk, and that is where God assigns to each one of us individually and for us as a community towards that end. We had a fabulous time last night. One of the youngsters who's joining our community in September is a guy called Tyler Larson. Tyler is going to Biola. And I've known his family for about 12, 13 years, and so he invited me up, his dad did, and there was about 16 of us meeting on a beach somewhere north of Malibu, and we ate together, and then there was a beach fire, and then we all prophesied over the kid, or kind of gave gifts to him. And I felt so weighted. I mean, it's kind of a fun thing to do, but this time I said to Meryl, this is different. So I feel like God says to me, I've got an axe, a hatchet, that I have in my car with it's my gift to me, and I don't buy me a lot of gifts. Maybe I buy me too few gifts, but I really like it. It's got a nice leather case. It's European, and I don't know why I bought it, but boy, do I feel good with it in my car. It feels like I'm ready at any moment for what I have no idea, but it's there. And so I start praying. I said, Lord, what do you want me to do with Tyler? He says, give him the axe. I'm like, you kidding me? I don't buy myself stuff, but I did. And then I felt God give me 3 prophetic words for him. As I arrived there, it's kind of cold, and I've got a really old, nice kind of munchy jacket on. And he looks at me and says, hey, Chris, your jacket's pretty sick. And as he says it, I thought, oh, no, Lord, now I'm giving him my jacket as well, you know. So the whole time I'm sitting wrestling as it goes around the circle. Everyone has an opportunity to talk. And as it comes to me, I'm like, all right, I'm giving him my jacket. So it comes to me, give him the axe, hatchet. Give the 3 prophetic words. And I said to him, Tyler, when I walked in, you said this jacket is sick. Now, for an old guy to have a young guy say that, that's pretty cool. But I said, it's yours. Because I feel like God wants to put a mantle on your life, and then I prophesied about that. Now, what's my point? There is high power in key prophetic moments. And part of us percolating at this time, pursuing the idea of being a prophetic people, is to do what we did tonight. Minister to, minister to, minister to. That is way more compelling. You probably won't remember my message by Tuesday, but if you were ministered to, prophesied over, you're going to remember that a long time. So, turn with me in your Bibles, please, to Daniel chapter 10, and I'm going to be a good Baptist tonight and give you 3 points. I know that will impress you. Daniel chapter 10. It will be up on the screen, so you can follow there. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel, who was also called Belshazzar. The message was true, and it concerned a great war. The understanding of the message. I think I put the ESV version up there. And he understood the word and had understanding of the vision. He understood the word and understanding of the vision. And so I, Daniel, at that time, mourned for 3 weeks. I ate no choice food, no meat or wine touched my lips, and I used no lotion at all. He didn't bath for 3 weeks whatsoever, sitting outside by the river. It's not a pleasant thought. Sounds like a surfer. On the 24th day of the 1st month, I was standing on the bank of the great river, the Tigris, and I looked up, and there was a man. Before me was a man dressed in linen, the belt of fine gold from Upaz around his waist. His body was like topaz, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and his legs like the gleam of furnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude. There's debate, is that the pre-incarnate Christ? I don't think so, because later on he says, I needed Michael the archangel to come and help me. I don't think Jesus needs help. I think it's another archangel. I, Daniel, was the only one who saw the vision. We'll talk about that in a few weeks' time. Dana's preaching next Sunday. Meryl and I will be preaching in London. Daniel was the only one who saw the vision, but those who were with me did not see it. But such terror overwhelmed them that they fled and hid themselves. So I was left alone, gazing at this great vision. I had no strength left. My face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless. I want to talk about prophetic prayer in a couple of weeks' time, because I think we don't understand the practice and the power of prophetic prayer. Then I heard him speaking, and as I listened to him, I fell into a deep sleep, my face to the ground. Think of a face plant, all right? Just think of a face plant, like kids, little bum in the air, little face like in the beach. That's what Daniel looked like. Super awkward, super embarrassing, face planted because of the power of that supernatural being that he encountered. A hand touched me and it set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said, Daniel, you are highly esteemed or beloved, some translations say. Consider carefully the words I'm about to speak to you and stand up, for I am now being sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before the Lord, your words were heard and I came in response to them. Great moment. When you started praying, I was sent by the Father, but it's taken me 21 days to get to you. Great theological conversation we will have. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes or archangels, came to help me because I was detained there by the king of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come. And while he was saying this to me, I bowed with my face toward the ground and was speechless. Then one who looked like a man touched my lips, opened my mouth, and I began to speak. I said to the one standing before me, I'm overcome with anguish because of the vision, my Lord, and I feel very weak. Do you see the little nuances of prophetic prayer? How can I, your servant, talk with you, O Lord? My strength is gone, and I can hardly breathe. Again, the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength. Do not be afraid. You are highly esteemed or beloved. He said, peace, be strong now, be strong. And when he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, speak, my Lord, since you have given me strength. And so he said, do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to the fight. What an incredible verse in the scriptures. Soon I will return to the fight against the prince of Persia. And when I go, the prince of Greece will come. But first I tell you what is written in the book of the truth. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. Wow. Father, grant us quick wisdom to get this point and to understand what it is you are trying to say to us. What are my 3 points? We're speaking about Daniel tonight, this passage and the 12 chapters. One is the context of his call. I think it's really important we understand why God puts us where he puts us. Secondly, the cost of his obedience. This cost Daniel, and we'll see how. And then thirdly, the climax of his ministry. He enters the court as a 16-year-old. This happens when he's 84. It's about 70 years that have transpired since him entering the court of Nebuchadnezzar and where he is now as an 84-year-old in the court of Cyrus. In chapter 1, you with me? Understand where we're going? It's all about Daniel. And I want to help you understand your story. I want you to see yourself in this tonight. Somewhere, figure yourself out. Because I think, as I've prayed and prepped on this at length, there are key moments, almost like Kodak moments, piecing through an album and say, that's it. Remember that moment? That was transforming. It's that kind of thing that I am praying for all of us. In chapter 1, it says, then the king ordered Uspaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family. So this is right at the beginning. They have brought the Israelites into captivity in Babylon. And the king says, I want the young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing an aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table, and they were to be trained for 3 years. And after that, they were to enter the king's service. What's the point? Here it is, my dear friends. God sets the place for our growth and development. In our cerebral, narcissistic, rampant individualistic world, we don't give cadence to the space and place that God puts us in. We run. Oh, I don't like this church anymore. I'm going to another one. Oh, I don't like this boss anymore. I'm going to another one. T's boss isn't my son, who's 26. Boss isn't always the easiest to work with. And I've said to him, my boy, don't you dare move. He is a crazy entrepreneur. He's the son of an immigrant. I think he's worth about 40 million now. He's just turned 50. I said, you learn absolutely everything you can from this man. I can't teach you what he can. He is a ridiculous entrepreneur. But Dad, he's quite difficult to work with. So? You want to just duck? Have you ever found someone whose boss is always amazing? Ask those who work with me. It ain't going to happen. God places us in those contexts. Here is Daniel. Think about it for a moment with me. He's a teenager. He's in exile. He's a foreigner. He is captive. He's a form of a refugee. He's in a foreign country, and he's being taught in a foreign language, their literature and their language. Who puts up their hand for that? God didn't say, look, Daniel, do you mind? Do you mind if I super inconvenient you? Do you mind if I send you to a foreign country and all the learning is going to be in that language, and you're not going to learn about your culture and your literature? It's all about the Babylonians. God is not preoccupied with the things that convenience us, because He knows, dear friends, what the end of our life will be like and the key events that we will still be involved with. I said, T, I don't know what your future is business-wise. But for this time, God has put you with a very difficult boss who is the son of an immigrant, and he doesn't always make your life easy, but there is a reason why you're being incubated in that space. I remember he was 22. He was asked to represent his boss at a Republican fundraising event. He went to Newport, and he put his best suit on, and he came home 2 or 3 hours later. He said, hey, Dad, you can't believe it. He said, everyone in the room are millionaires and billionaires. And he said, here I am, 22 years old, and I've got my long hair, and I'm thinking, what on earth am I doing? I said, my boy, this is part of God's preparation. Your boss is not always easy to work with, but there are things you will learn in the space and place that your humanist, your Southern California humanist says, you know what, I'm done, I'm out. No. The space and place ends when God has done what God wants to do in and with you. Does that make sense? He served. He felt lonely, displaced, often out of step. He felt disoriented. Don't you feel that way? After 30 years in America, there's still times I feel like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I fit in. Then I go back to South Africa, and they are where they are, and I'm like, I don't know if I fit in anywhere. I'm not South African anymore, and I'm not American, like the moment I open my mouth. But it's the space and place where God has placed me. Do you understand the point? He worked with 4 different emperors. Nebuchadnezzar, Babylonian. Belshazzar, Babylonian. Darius, a Medo-Persian. Cyrus, a Medo-Persian. 4 different emperors. Surely, at some point in time, he can go home. Surely he's done his bit. I did chuckle around this, and I hate the clock because it's shouting at me already. But I did have fun today, just to let you know, around the prefrontal cortex. Because all of you clever people who went to college, that a young man's prefrontal cortex is not developed until he's about 26. So he had 10 years without a prefrontal cortex developed. John Mark tells the story of moaning at his son, Jude. Jude did something that was completely irrational and emotional and ridiculous. He said, Jude, I can't believe you would go and do that. And Jude looked at him and said, hey, Dad, why? My prefrontal cortex hasn't developed yet. What do you do there? It's like, well, I don't really know what to say, because that's the stupidest thing you could ever have done. Because people without their prefrontal cortex are driven by emotions or urges without thinking the consequences. That's you, 16 to 26, sir. Engage in risk-taking behaviors, speeding, substance abuse, and reckless stunts, the psychologists tell us. Decisions based on peer pressure and emotion rather than logic and future planning. Anger, frustration, and anxiety driven the young man. God places us in this space because He wants to deepen our character. These years, dear friends, in your 20s, splashing into your 30s, are times where God is shaping your character because He knows what you need down the road. There's a group of 6 men from around the world that I Zoom with once a month. They are all going to lead their own church planting network over the next period of time. Amazing men. Middle East, South Africa, Lisbon, Portugal, Wales, and here in the U.S. Great, great men. But I had a very tender conversation with them this past Thursday And I said, brothers, you have to know that when you, and I use the cycling analogy, when you move out of the peloton and get to the front, i.e. when you lead your own thing, you must understand it's a whole new dimension that's coming on you and your marriage. Your marriage better be sharp. This is not, well, we've been married and we kind of get along and we don't fight too often and we agree on most things except, and then one day we're going to lead a church planting movement around the world and it'll just be the same. No, sir, it will not. There will be a weight. Paul said it this way. He said, I carry daily my burden of all the churches. There is a weight coming on you, I said. And your marriage better be strong enough to cope with that. And I'm using that by analogy, dear friends, because God knows what your future holds. And He has put you in a space and place. And dear friends, that's why He puts you under pressure. Look at this incredible quote. Rees Howell was an intercessor during the Second World War, a Welshman. Anyone with a knowledge of Christian history during that time would have heard of Rees Howell, an incredible intercessor. And he said it this way, during this period, World War II, the Lord has allowed us to be tested beyond our strength. Why do you think you feel overwhelmed? I can't do this. It's all too much for me. It's because God is helping you and me to develop a muscle group that, like Daniel, when you are in your 80s, you will be able to cope with what you are in then. There it is. Often pressed, out of measure, above strength, so that we should not trust in ourselves. God is in your story. The space place, like Daniel, that you are in where you feel lonely, disorientated, disengaged. You feel like you don't fully belong. I don't. I wish I could be in one country with all the culture. I don't know. I remember going to my second ice hockey game and feeling so embarrassed because I didn't know what to say. We sat in a member's ticket. Someone took me. And I realized the moment I arrived there, I realized I was in trouble because everyone came with their ice hockey colors and I came in jeans. And I looked at all of this and I realized there's a whole cultural world that I know nothing, and I was completely out of step from the time I got out of the car. Our faith has grown with the work, and we have proven over and over again that all the testings have been for the purpose of strengthening it, strengthening our faith. Pause, dear young ones. Pause. God has placed you in a context to train and prepare you not for what you're facing now only, but for what you are going to face then. Daniel, you are 16. You're in a foreign court under a foreign king, learning a foreign language. But one day, my boy, you're going to be in your 80s, and all of that will make sense. I hope that helps. All right, moving on. Secondly, the cost of his obedience. I'll rush because of time is never my friend. And interesting, one theologian said that Daniel was probably a eunuch. And he argues the point that those men were always castrated by the emperors. And as an historian, I've read that many, many times. We don't know for sure, but we know he never had a wife, he never had kids, he never had family. Never was there any reference in the 12 chapters of the book, nor any research around him holds that. And the cost of his obedience, as God said, Daniel, based on what you need to become, I'm going to put you in a court and you're going to become a eunuch. Now that does not fit into our modern pop theology, does it? How dare God? How dare God castrate a man? How dare God? Doesn't he have the right to a marriage and kids and a family and a nice little house in the suburbs? How dare God? But can I ask this question? What does God ask of you? Where has God asked you to be a eunuch? What has God asked you to give up? Because there will be something, 100%. It may not be physical, it may not be relational, but it may be something else. I was sitting with someone last week, and he told me his story. He said he was on his way to becoming a professional sportsman. He had the talent, he had the ability, and he was told beyond any shadow of a doubt, you will make it. And he went to tryouts and practice. And as he was practicing, he realized this was an all-in. You give your life to this. Sundays you practice. And he said, no, that's not what God has called me to be. God has called me to be a family man who is locked in Christian community and who does life with others. And he went to those who were running the tryout and said, thank you very much for the opportunity, but I won't stay. His eunuch was to give up a professional sportsman career because of the trajectory it took him on, when actually he felt his future was in community with a family. What is your eunuch call? Could be single. Could be. And for none of us, what we have to give up is ever easy. Cost of his obedience. The second cost, and I try to understand this, but he would never leave Babylon. Now, why that's moving for me is that in all of the writings, he never really seemed to have a burden for Babylon, either for the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar or the Medo-Persian empires. But when it comes to praying for Jerusalem, as we'll see in a few weeks' time, he was devastated. When you read how he prays, you will say, Chris, I've never seen anyone pray like this before, and you're absolutely right. Everything inside of him, dear friend, wanted to be found in Jerusalem with the 50,000 who went back, and it seems like God said, son, you will never go home. You will always be here. Now, he can't be married, can't have kids. He's in a foreign court 4 emperors later. He's an old man. He dies, theologians say, within a couple of years of the 12th chapter. You'll never go home. You're staying. And God doesn't give him a reason. It's the cost of obedience. It's an incredible story. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Because sometimes we live with such cultural confusion. How could God be asking this of me? And my peer friends say, oh, no, God would never ask that of you. He might. He might. He might just ask that of you. This was my career, Chris. This was the thing from when I was a little kid. This is all I ever wanted to be. Do you think God would ask that of me? He might. Because there might be a higher virtue than that from his point of view. I remember giving up my sports career. I don't know how good I would have been because I was so young when I did. And I told my folks that I wouldn't be pursuing this career. And my dad looked at me and he said, God would never give you a gift and never allow you to practice it. And if he said that to me today, I would have said, yes, Dad, he might. He might. Because there's something else that he has called me into. Can I just say one more and then we'll dash to the others? Your gift will cost you. It gets better after this. When I land, you'll be a lot happier. But every gift costs. I've got a friend who's got a massive empathy gift. Massive, massive, massive. He's one of those Jesus-like person. He's got a church of about 3,000 people, and he will speak, and in the midst of it, stop. And he'll walk up to someone who's sitting over there in the bleachers, and he'll call them out. And by the time they get to the front, he is a wreck. Big man, ex-rugby player, big man. And he'll be a wreck as he starts ministering and prophesying the empathy that he feels for this person's circumstance. But he says to me, Chris, my gift is destroying me because I can't cope with how much emotion I'm expending. He was driving home one day and he called his wife, and she knows it, and that isn't unfamiliar. And he said, babe, I know you've got dinner on the table, but I can't come home now. And God had spoken to him and said, I need you to go to about 40 minutes north. There's a church planting couple. And he said, I don't know why I have to go, but I have to go and see them. And she said, sure. And he arrived there, and they were in the middle of a fight. The pressure of a church plant was just too much for them. And he walked in, and they were kind of coy and embarrassed, and they were caught. And he sat down with them for about an hour, hour and a half. And when he was finished, he took out his checkbook, as it was in those days, and he wrote them a check, said, "Go and have a vacation. It's on me." He said, "Chris, my empathy is killing me." How is your gift killing you? Because it's when the eternal and the sacred lands in a very human jar of clay. Very human. And it's very easy for that to be just too heavy for it. That's why you've got to be so wise, and we'll talk about developing a prayer culture that will sustain you. Your gift is bigger than you. Our gift is bigger than us, isn't it? All right. Lastly, the climax of his ministry. It's a 12-chapter book. And I just thought to myself, you know what's incredible? If they had to write 12 chapters of our lives, any of us, what would they exclude? And I think it is an embarrassing comment that there isn't time to sweat the small stuff. If you think about it, even those of you who are really young, think about stuff that you were so intense about when you were 14. And it's like, oh yeah. I was so fearful that when I went to that party that everyone would like my pants. And Mom, please, I don't know. I think I've got to go back. I've got to get those other, and this whole stressful exhaustion, this anxiety, and no one even noticed that you had those pants on. That's a silly adolescent example. But what about those of us a little bit older? It's like, oh God, really? If they were to write 12-chapter account of you, what would they leave out? Because probably you're spending too much emotion worrying about it. The other thing, quickly, this is also pretty cool, is that this is 5 days in Daniel's life. David Pawson, the British theologian, waxes so beautiful on this passage. He said he went and studied this, and he realized this is 5 days of Daniel's life. It's 70 years of ministry, which approximates at 3,400 days. And of the 3,400 days, it represents 5. And so he asks the question, what did Daniel do the rest of the time? Have you ever wondered? Because we have these high points. You know, he walks in, and there's a finger. Belshazzar is living this highly prideful, arrogant, licentious life. And there's a hand. The hand that wrote the commandments, the hand that wrote on the sand when that woman was caught in the act of adultery. That same hand is on the wall, writing and casting judgment on Belshazzar. And Daniel walks in, he says, "Sir, that's what it says." And that night, Belshazzar is assassinated. I mean, like, dang, I want to prophesy like that. I mean, like, woo! 5 times in 70 years. What did he do the rest of his time? And this is where I'm landing. Well, I guess he woke up in the morning. And because he was a healthy eater, he would probably have his yogurt, strawberries, blueberries with nuts. Or if you're a carnivore, eggs, steak. He wasn't a carnivore. Well, I don't even mention what he was. It shouldn't be mentioned from this pulpit that you eat without meat. But he had a healthy breakfast. Then what did he do? He prayed, because we know he prayed 3 times a day. And what did he do after that? He went to the office. What did he do? He worked for the government. So of the 3,400 days, 5 of them he prophesied. The other 3,395 days, he woke up in the morning, had his breakfast, prayed his prayers, and then went and worked for the government. Why is that important? Because sometimes we feel our life couldn't possibly be spiritually sharp if it's so boring, if it's so predictable, if it's so ordinary. But you see what Daniel teaches us in the climax of his ministry, his eternal posture of readiness. God, when you speak, I will be ready. Remember, Jesus spoke about the foolish virgins and the wise virgins? The foolish virgins were running. This isn't fun enough. We're going to have fun. We're going to dance around and do whatever. And our flasks were empty, devoid of oil. The wise virgins, they just said, what matters most to us is that our flasks are full of oil. Ladies and gentlemen, why is this passage so important? Why do we land around this? Because there is a posture of readiness that God wants all of us to have. What delighted me when we prayed as an eldership, here's one of the cards that slipped out in my bag. It's for Simon. It's all we have. Simon G. You know how much fun it was praying for Simon? How much prophetic stirring was in our hearts about what God wants to do for Simon? Because when we are in an eternal state of readiness, God, use me. It's fine. God, use me. I don't want to be the young, foolish virgin that's always rushing around. What's the coolest thing? What's the next best thing to do? No, I just want oil in my jar. Here I am, Lord. Use me. The gospel I started with, and this is where I land. The gospel is not just there to secure an eternity in the new heavens and the new earth. The gospel is there because it's an ongoing transformation in your life and mine. A 16-year-old teenager who was invited into the court of the king. 70 years later, he is prophesying with a broken heart about his people who are returning from exile and the journey that it took to get him there. That's the invitation. We're going to come to communion now. And I want you to engage with Christ and the gospel. Though the team who are serving us this evening are going to lead us in this. What grabbed you tonight? I hope something did. I hope something startled you. A reminder, a shudder, a thought. Oh my Lord, how narcissistic am I that I always just want the best, the coolest, and the new. When actually there is a fortitude and a tenacity, as Daniel had for 70 years in a foreign court in a foreign language, reading foreign literature. Maybe God has chosen a space and place that's very inconvenient for you, but it's an invite to a transformed life. Communion. Can I have the team joining me, please? On the night that he was betrayed, the Lord Jesus took the bread. That chair over there, that's not our sign. Miracles happen here. But we're happy if miracles do happen here. So that's our healing chair. If you or someone you love has some illness, disease, some condition, we will have a team that will come and pray with you and for you. And we cry out for the healing God, the God who is healing, to come and touch them. And there'll be others up there happily wanting to pray for you. He took the bread and he broke it. And he said, "This is my body broken for you." I love that. It's how we start. We start in the upper room when he took communion, took the bread, and he said, this is where we start. The invitation from brokenness, a young teenager without a developed prefrontal cortex, and a journey of gospel transformation till he was in his 80s, zealous for Jesus, hungry for truth, passionate about God visiting with his people. And then he took the cup. And we all know the ordinariness of this moment, but the transforming impact. And I wonder what the personal application is for each one of us tonight. But maybe this is a sacred moment. Each one of us can just say, "Oh God, thank you for speaking to me tonight." Whatever he may have said, and if he said nothing, maybe he'll speak to you then. But come and take a piece of bread, take some grape juice. There is gluten-free crackers. forgive us where we moan and groan about the space and place where you've landed us. Forgive us, O God, when we groan about the cost of the life you've put us into. But it's all points towards a climax at the end when we'll look back and we'll say, oh, now I see. Now I see. So please join us. First row, the body of our Lord Jesus Christ that was broken for you. Come, take, eat, and do this in remembrance of Him.
Thank you for listening to the Genesis Costa Mesa podcast. To find more information about our community, feel free to visit our website, www.genesiscostamesa.com, or find us on social media @GenesisCostaMesa.